Welcome to Her Subconscious Blueprint, your no BS space for subconscious healing, bold breakthroughs, and manifestations. I'm Jen Boyd, hypnotherapist, mindset coach, and your new healing hype girl. Today, let's talk about manifesting, but not in the way that you've probably heard it on social media, where people make it sound like you can just close your eyes, snap your fingers, and suddenly you've got $1 million sitting in your bank account. It's tempting to think it works that way, but here's the truth. We're not going to start with the $1 million checks or the dream house or the private jets. We're going to start simple because simple is powerful. Simple is believable. And if your subconscious doesn't believe it, it will immediately block it. That's why so many people give up on manifestation before they've ever really truly experienced it. They start too big, too fast, and then wonder why it doesn't feel real. They get discouraged. They label it as not working, and then they close the door on it completely and give up. But here is the secret that I'm going to share with you today. The smallest things aren't actually small. They are everything. Those little manifestations, they rewire your brain. They give you evidence, and evidence is the one thing that your subconscious cares about. Here's an example. When you say, I'm going to manifest $1 million this month, but your subconscious is whispering like, yeah, right, you can't even pay your bills on time. You've got a tug-of-war happening. Your conscious mind is trying to pull one way, and your subconscious is pulling the other. And guess who wins every single time? You guessed it, your subconscious. That is why starting with something so small is so important. You build belief through evidence. You stack proof. And once your conscious mind starts seeing that evidence, it relaxes. It lets go of resistance. And suddenly, those bigger manifestations start to feel natural and even obvious. It's just like lifting weights. Like, you don't walk into a gym for the first time and expect to deadlift 300 pounds. No, you start with 10s, 20s, maybe even 30s. You build strength. You build trust with your body. And over time, what once looked impossible, it becomes our second nature. Manifestation is training that exact muscle. Only the muscle is belief. That is why I love starting with what feels small, even though it's actually huge. For example, let's use green lights, the perfect parking spot, the specific animal or symbol, little synchronicities that make you stop and smile and say thank you. When you practice with these, you're proving to yourself that I am powerful, I am supported, and I am co-creating with the universe. And the more you believe that, the more it happens. One of my very favorite go-to examples is green lights. Every single time I get in the car, I say, thank you for the green lights all the way. Not please, not hopefully. No, I think it in advance. And then every time I hit a green light, I celebrate it. I say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And guess what? Suddenly, the red lights stop bothering me. I don't even notice them the same way. Why? Because my mind is trained to look for what I want, not what I don't want. And here is the truth. What you look for is always what you find. There is science behind this too. Your brain has something called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS. Think of it as a little filter in your subconscious, and its job is to sort through the millions of pieces of information that are flooding your senses every single day. And it's deciding what's important. If you believe that you're unlucky, your RAS will highlight every single thing that proves that you're right. The red lights, the traffic jams, the missed opportunities. But if you shift your story and you tell yourself things like, things are always working out for me. I always find the perfect parking spot. I always catch the green lights. Suddenly, your RAS starts showing you all of the evidence of that. The world didn't change. Your filter did. And let me give you a real life story that just happened. I was at the mall yesterday, and there's this one specific parking area that I like to park in. I love it because it's small, it's close, and it's just easy to pull in and out of. But since the lot is small, it's usually always full and packed. And as I was pulling in, I said to my guides, "Thank you for the perfect parking spot. Let someone be leaving just as I arrive." And I shit you not. As I rounded the corner, a car pulled out of the exact spot. And I literally laughed and said, "Of course, things always work out for me." That wasn't coincidence. That was alignment. And then, as if the universe wanted to really drive this point home, something wild happened when I was preparing for this episode. I thought, okay, let me play with this in real time. Let me ask for a sign as I'm writing this. And I decided, universe, God, source, whatever you resonate with, show me a hummingbird outside my office window. And I am not kidding you when I tell you this, but within 10 minutes, not an hour, not a day, 10 minutes, a hummingbird flew right up to my window. And I just sat there smiling because that's how this works. When you ask clearly, when you believe, and when you stay open, life responds. And the faster you acknowledge it, the more often it happens. These little moments are where manifestation becomes fun. It's not about straining or trying to force something. It's about playing with it. It's about gratitude. It's about trust. The energy you bring to it is everything. If you're manifesting from desperation, like, please, 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 I need this or else, you're broadcasting resistance. But if you say, thank you, I know it's already mine, you're broadcasting trust. And trust is magnetic. Some of you might be thinking, but Jen, isn't this just a coincidence? Isn't this just woo-woo? Didn't you just get lucky with that parking spot? Didn't that hummingbird just randomly show up? And I totally get that. I used to think the same way. But here's what changed everything for me. Once you start noticing, once you start practicing, it stops being random. It becomes too consistent, too specific, too personal. The odds of it being a coincidence every single time became laughable. That is when you start to realize it's not luck, it's law of attraction and law of vibration. And science even backs this up. There's a principle in quantum physics called the observer effect. And it basically says that the very act of observation influences the outcome. In other words, what you look for, you find. Not metaphorically, literally. When you focus your awareness on something, you collapse the possibilities into that outcome. That's what you're doing when you say, thank you for the green lights, or I'm going to see a butterfly today. You're instructing your mind to collapse reality into that direction. And then your body responds. You release that feel-good chemical like dopamine when it happens. And that wires the belief even deeper. Here's the thing. These little manifestations, they're not silly. They're sacred. They're practice. They're training your subconscious to believe, to notice, and to celebrate. And that's the secret to getting bigger things later. Because if you can't celebrate the hummingbird, if you can't believe in the parking spot, how the hell are you going to believe in the 6-figure raise, the soulmate, or the dream house? The subconscious has to crawl before it can run. One of the best strategies you can use is pre-celebration. Celebrate before it even shows up. That's why I say thank you for the green lights before I even drive out of my garage. That's why I ask for the hummingbird with a smile, already knowing that it's going to show up. Because it always does. I believe it. I know it. You're rehearsing the feeling of it already happening. And your subconscious doesn't know the difference between a memory, a curated event, or even an imagined event. So when you flood your body with gratitude in advance, your subconscious locks it in as real. And once it feels real inside, your outer reality shifts to match it. Another powerful tool is surrender. Not surrender like I'm giving up, but surrender like loosening your grip. When you say, this has to show up exactly this way at this exact time, or else I might die, you're cutting yourself off from miracles. But when you say this or something better, you open the door for things you couldn't even have imagined. Sometimes what shows up is even greater than what you asked for. But here is where a lot of people get stuck. They fall into the trap of what I call manic manifesting or over manifesting or manifesting out of desperation. Because here's the truth. Not all manifesting is created equal. And sometimes what people think is manifesting is really just frantic energy. And that energy pushes what you want even further away. Manic manifesting is when you're trying to control everything. It's when you're checking your bank account 15 times a day to see if that money magically appeared. It's when you're repeating affirmations 100 times a day in the mirror, but deep down, you don't believe a single word of what you're saying. It's when you're writing the same desire in your journal over and over again, but from a place of fear, like, if you don't write it enough, it won't happen. That is not alignment. That is anxiety dressed up as spirituality. Over manifesting is when you're throwing everything at the wall. 10 vision boards, 12 different affirmations, 15 scripted exercises, and then you're wondering why nothing is sticking. You're not manifesting from clarity. You're manifesting from chaos. And chaos only attracts more chaos. Like attracts like, right? And then there's manifesting out of desperation. This is the energy of, please, 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 if I don't get this, I am completely out of options. This has to happen. You can feel that energy, right? It's icky, it's heavy, it's needy. It's the same energy as someone clinging too tightly in a relationship. It doesn't feel good. And if it doesn't feel good to you, why would God or the universe send you more of that? Desperation is basically a declaration of lack. It's saying, I don't have this. I need it. I can't survive without it. And what do you get more of when you focus on not having? More not having. That's why I always tell people that the energy you bring to your manifestation matters more than the actual words that you're saying. You can say the most perfect affirmation in the world, but if your body is vibrating with panic and fear, that's the signal you're broadcasting. The subconscious doesn't listen to your words, it listens to your emotions. So here's how to know if you are in one of these patterns. If your manifesting practice feels stressful or frantic or like a chore, you're probably not in alignment. If you feel lighter and calmer and more trusting, more playful, then you're in that sweet spot. And that is why I always say, start simple. Play the game. Surrender to the how. Manic manifesting says, I need this now or else. Aligned manifesting says, thank you. I trust it's already mine, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds in the best possible way. You see the difference? One is rooted in fear, while the other is rooted in trust. And only trust attracts what you actually want. Manifesting is like planting a seed in the garden. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every single day to see if it's growing. You don't say, hey, are you growing yet? You don't stand over it demanding, why aren't you flowering yet? Why aren't you growing yet? Why aren't you bigger? Why can't I see you? If you did, you'd kill it. What do you do instead? You water it. You nurture it. You give it sunlight and nutrients. And you trust. You trust the soil. And you know without a doubt that underneath the surface, things are happening. That is exactly how manifestation works. When you set an intention, when you ask for the green lights, the hummingbird, the promotion, the partner, you've planted the seed. Your job isn't to keep ripping it out of the ground to check to see if it's working. Your job is to nurture it with gratitude, with action, to trust it is yours, with belief, and to allow it to bloom in its own time. And here's the thing. Every time you say thank you in advance, every time you celebrate the little signs, you're watering that seed. You're giving it the light that it needs. You're nourishing it. And when the time is right, when you've held the faith long enough, it breaks through the soil and becomes visible. But just because you can't see it yet doesn't mean it isn't growing. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, where is it? Why hasn't it happened yet? I want you to remind yourself that the seed is already planted. The roots are growing, and your only job is to water it with trust and gratitude. And the bloom is inevitable. Now, I want to circle back to gratitude because gratitude is actually the glue that holds it all together. Gratitude doesn't just feel good, it literally rewires your brain. Studies show that when people practice daily gratitude, their levels of dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good chemicals, they increase. Gratitude shifts you into a receptive state. And when you're in that state, more good flows in. Gratitude says, yes, more please. And complaints say, no, stop. I only want more of this frustration. So every time you say thank you, every time you notice the little synchronicities, you're telling the universe, I'm ready for more. Complaint says, no, stop. I only want more of this frustration. So every time you say thank you, every time you notice the little synchronicities, you're telling the universe, I'm ready for more of that. And here's the thing. We all have gratitude. Every single one of us has moments where we feel thankful. But here's the big difference between just feeling it for a second in your head and actually embodying it, speaking it out loud, declaring it into the world, the universe. When you notice something small and you say, thank you with intention, that energy multiplies. So think about this. When you walk into your kitchen and there's a hot cup of coffee waiting for you, or if you're like me, always has to be iced. And instead of just sipping it and moving on, what if you pause and say, thank you for this coffee? You've amplified the energy. When you catch a green light and you say out loud, thank you for this green light, you've magnified the vibration. When you see that hummingbird at your window or the butterfly that you've been asking for, you whisper, thank you, God. Thank you, universe. You've anchored it in. There's power in speaking gratitude out loud. Words carry vibrations. Sound is energy. When you say it, you're not just acknowledging it for yourself, but you're broadcasting it out. You're sending a signal that says, this matters to me, more of this, please. And that is why small things are never small. Every time you voice gratitude for the so-called little things, you're laying bricks for the bigger things to land. The more often you speak your gratitude, the more finely tuned your energy becomes. Suddenly, you're resonating at a frequency of abundance instead of lack. That is when you stop chasing and things start showing up, seemingly out of nowhere. This is why starting small matters so much. You don't have as much resistance to the hummingbird or the parking spot as you do $1 million in your bank account. You're not overthinking it. You're not obsessing over the how and the when. You're just asking, expecting, and receiving. And that process builds belief. And I want to be very clear. None of this is random. None of this is just coincidence. It's law, it's energy, it's alignment. And God, universe, source is always listening. Your subconscious is always taking notes. You are always creating whether you realize it or not. If you're creating by default, you're probably manifesting things you don't even want because your dominant thoughts are based on lack, the traffic, the bills, the stress. But once you flip the script and start creating deliberately, everything will change, I promise. So here's what I want you to try this week. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't go straight for the $1 million. Pick something light, something playful. Ask for a butterfly. Ask for a hummingbird. Ask for a feather. Ask for the green lights. And then pre-celebrate. Say thank you in advance. And when it shows up, because it will, notice it. Smile, celebrate, and say thank you again. Let your subconscious soak in that evidence and then do it again and again and again. The repetition is what builds the muscle. The gratitude is what expands it. The playfulness is what keeps you open. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize, wow, I have created so much. And these big manifestations you once thought were impossible, they feel like the natural next step. And let me just say this. Every single person listening right now has already manifested something today. Maybe it was thinking of someone right before they text you or called you. Maybe it was saying you were hungry and someone offered you food. Maybe it was the hummingbird. Maybe it was humming a song and then hearing it on the radio. You're already doing it. The question is, are you doing it on purpose or are you doing it by default? Because if you're doing it by default, you're probably manifesting a lot of what you don't want. The bills, the stress, the traffic, the frustration. Why? Because that's where your attention is. But once you realize you can choose your focus, once you realize you can start small and build trust, everything changes. So here's what I want you to do this week. Pick something small and expect it. And when it shows up, don't brush it off. Don't say, oh, that's just a coincidence. I want you to claim it, celebrate it, and say thank you, more, please. And don't limit yourself in how it shows up. Maybe the butterfly comes as a sticker on someone's water bottle, or a tattoo on a stranger's arm, or a painting or a picture on a screen. If you're open and you surrender without limitations, you leave space for infinite possibilities. But the second you say, well, that didn't count, it wasn't a real butterfly, you have just closed the door. You limit your beliefs, and when you limit your beliefs, you limit your manifestations. And if you really want to supercharge this, keep a manifestation journal. I will link my favorites in the show notes. Write down every little synchronicity, every win, every parking spot, every song, every animal, every green light. And you will be blown away when you look back in a week or two and you see just how much has happened. That's your subconscious collecting evidence. That's your proof. And the more proof you collect, the bigger your manifestation can be. Because now your subconscious says, okay, this is safe. This is real. We can handle more. Another powerful tool that I love is setting a manifestation alarm. Literally put one on your phone that goes off every 2 to 4 hours throughout the day. Make sure it's a calming tone, not one of those annoying alarms. And when it goes off, don't just swipe it away. I want you to stop and pause and take a breath and thank the universe out loud. A minute of gratitude will shift your entire energy field. You don't need a full ritual, just your words and your intention. And a common one that I say when my manifestation alarm goes off is, I move with trust and ease, knowing everything I release makes space for something greater. I'm ready, I'm willing, and I'm walking in my highest aligned timeline now. And even just saying that out loud shifts me instantly. My body softens, my energy lifts, and I feel the trust sink in. I have linked several more for you in the show notes. But these micro moments throughout the day are how you start to rewire yourself to become magnetic. Think about it. If you're broadcasting gratitude and trust 6, 7, 8 times a day, what do you think starts to happen? You shift from consistently living in stress and reactivity to living in alignment. And alignment is where the magic happens. Remember, manifestation isn't about asking once and then sitting around waiting, disappointed if it doesn't show up in 5 minutes. It's about cultivating trust. It's about consistency. It's about gratitude. It's about aligning your energies with the feelings of already having it. And then letting life surprise you with the how and the when. It's not your job to control the how or the when. And I promise you, once you master the art of starting simple, once you let yourself play with it, you'll be shocked at how fast the big things start to come. You'll look back at your life and realize, oh my God, I created this. I actually created this. And this is the most empowering feeling in the world. And I am so full of love and gratitude that I get to share my story with you. This is Her Subconscious Blueprint, where we don't just chase the dreams, we become them. And remember, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. So go out and be that version of her today. Much love and gratitude. I will see you next time.